There's a doctor, he takes us over to a little makeshift room and he basically says, you do have a large subchorionic hemorrhage. And he said, so you just need to know that that puts you at a high risk of having a miscarriage. And just without even thinking, I just said, I reject that in the name of Jesus. And he just kind of stared at me and he said, well, that's fine, but I got to tell you that. And I said, that's fine that you tell me that, but just so you know, I reject it. And he was like, okay.
I'm Kayla Heater, follower of Jesus, wife and mother of 6 children, Christian childbirth educator and doula, and your host of the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, where we share God-centered birth stories, evidence-based birth education, and our pursuit of surrendering our birth plans to God. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Happy Monday or happy day, whatever day you are listening to this. I hope it's a beautiful day and a wonderful day for you. I am recording this the night before it comes out, which is my typical MO. And I'm excited. I have to tell you guys, this weekend, I got to go to a birth workshop that was really fun all day Saturday down in Kannapolis, North Carolina. And it was actually a what to do with a surprise breech delivery workshop where we kind of learned sort of some basic skills of how to help deliver a breech baby. Now, I'm not a midwife and I don't, catch babies, generally speaking. But as a birth doula, I have been in a couple of situations where I've been the only person there when the baby was born and had to catch a few babies. And so it's just a thing that happens from time to time. Midwife doesn't make it in time, or we're delivering a baby in a car on our way somewhere. So it's just, I wanted to have some more skills up my sleeve in case that ever happened again. And I am no expert by any means, but it was a really great start and foundation to learning about delivering breech babies, and just a really fun educational time. And I am excited to learn more about it. Honestly, it was really great. I had a great time. It was also nice because it was Christian based. And so we had fellowship and prayer and worship along with, meeting other birth workers in the area and connecting. And it was just like, it was the best of both worlds. It was Jesus and birth, like all day. And it was awesome. I had so much fun. I loved it. And I can't wait to do something like that again. Okay. I am taking registrations for my summer class that is now going to be 6 weeks long, we have decided. It's been a 5-week class for the last couple of years, and now I am officially ready to make it a 6-week class. And I explained it's not any different than the online course. It's just in person, I just need more time for Q&A, and more margin and more breathing room in those classes so they don't feel like they're rushed, because there is so much information that we go over. And on the online course, of course, you can just press pause and, go to the bathroom and do whatever, or, shoot me a message of a question and I get back to you whenever I can. But in the in-person class, there's just so much going on. We are getting to know each other. We're creating relationships. We're asking lots of questions. People are telling stories, and it's awesome. I love that for the in-person class, but it just needs some more breathing room so we don't feel so rushed. So we are going to be doing that end of July through August will be our summer class, and those are going to be for the fall due date. So September, October, November, and then even if you have an early December due date, we can do that as well. So please go ahead and reach out. I would love to start getting that class registered and filled up. I think all of you know that you're pregnant by now. Like I think about that, like when people find out they're pregnant. So if you know someone else local to the Triad who is pregnant or needs a class, please go ahead and do that. And of course, as always, if you are not local or if that schedule just does not work for you, then we do have our online course available all the time, 24/7 on demand. And there's a link for it in every episode in the show notes. So ironically enough, the topic of breech birth comes up a lot in this episode, in today's episode. So I thought it was funny that I went and learned so much about it yesterday. And I'm so glad to learn that much more so I can help educate, my clients should they have, a surprise breech or even a not surprised breech, a breech that they knew about. And we can discuss their options and everything, because it is not just, you're not stuck. You don't just have one option when it comes to having a breech presentation, but you should know there are several options and you should be able to make an informed decision yourself about that. So we dive into that in today's episode. So let's go ahead and dive in. How do you know you're pregnant without taking a pregnancy test? How about God simply tells you that you are? That's the kind of trust and faith that Kayla had with the Lord from the start of her pregnancy, and it would carry her throughout the entire 9 months. From a subchorionic hemorrhage to a last-minute change in her birth plan and location, He would carry her. Your perspective on your birth and your choice to surrender holds so much more weight in your experience than whether or not your birth plan unfolds the way you thought it would or wanted it to. And have you ever heard of a postpartum described as euphoric? Get ready to hear about Kayla's experience and how we wish everybody could have the same one. Well, welcome to another episode of Surrendered Birth Stories. I am your host, Kayla Heater, and I have Kayla Steele with me today. So Kayla, please take a minute, introduce yourself, tell us about you, your life, your family, help us get to know you.
Yeah. So, well, first, thank you for having me. Like you said, my name is Kayla Steele. My husband is Jason, and we have the most incredible little 4-month-old baby girl. To give you a little bit of background about us, because it's going to be relevant to the story later, I have spent several years working in nonprofit work. I actually co-founded a nonprofit where I work with teenagers in gangs, and my husband is an integrative healthcare provider. That's a little bit about us. We've been married for about 7.5 years now and going strong.
Going strong. So she's 4-month-old. Is she having any sort of sleep regression, or are you not hitting that yet?
We just got through it.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I don't want to say we're on the other side because then she probably wouldn't sleep at all tonight. But we hit that actually around 3 months, and we worked through it. And for about a week, we have been doing really good. So I'm not going to jinx us and say we're on the other side, but I can say we've been doing really good for a week.
I'm glad. Because to me, sometimes that's harder than straight newborn when they have that regression.
Well, because you got spoiled there for a little bit.
Well, and even if you didn't get spoiled, it's at least in the beginning, everyone expects you to be laying in bed and resting and recovering. And so if you're not sleeping as much, at least you're laying in bed. Whereas by 4 months, people expect you to be at church every Sunday. And if you're working at work every day and all this stuff, with getting less sleep than you did when they were born.
You're expected to have it together for sure at 4 months. And I actually read something about that for a lot of women, that's actually when it's the hardest for them, because you're having things like sleep regression and whatnot. A lot of women are going back to work at that point, and you don't have as much help because people are like, oh, they're fine.
She's good now. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Nope. I'm here to say, after doing it almost 6 times now, it's harder. It's harder than initial. I mean, minus the physical recovery.
And, I do have a really great support system. And so that definitely makes a big difference.
Yes, you do. You have a fantastic support system. I got to know your mom a little bit and your dad a little bit. And I'm like, yep, you're set. I don't have to worry about your postpartum. You are going to be well taken care of. So dive into your pregnancy story. What was the journey like to getting pregnant? How did that all go down?
So it's really incredible to me. My story of pregnancy and whatnot, like the more I reflect on it, the more even just these little details that I see where the Lord really worked in just the most incredible ways. It really is so just inspiring of awe in me of how kind the Lord is. But so basically, my story started last January, so just a little over a year ago, with a bout of insomnia. And I'm going to warn you, I may accidentally say apnea because my brain mixes those two up. I did not have sleep apnea, I had insomnia. I started having insomnia out of nowhere. And if you know me, you know that that is not common. Your girl can sleep. And so it started one night. I woke up at 4 a.m. and I was just awake. And so I was laying there and I was trying to go back to sleep and it just wasn't happening. And so I was like, okay, like I'm going to start praying. And so I started praying, kept praying, kept praying. And I was just not going to sleep. And I was like, this is bizarre, but okay, whatever. Didn't really think anything of it, went about my day. Next night, it happens again, right around like 3:34. I wake up, I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I start praying again. And I was like, Lord, like, are you trying to tell me something? Is there a sin in my life that I need to be repenting of? Is there something in my life I need to be surrendering to you? Like I'm here, like hands open, like tell me, is there something that's going on? Is there somebody I need to be praying for? I start, working through like my family members and church members and praying over them all. I'm like, maybe I'm missing something, like what's going on? Because it didn't feel like regular, like, oh, I just can't sleep. Like there was something to it, but I just couldn't put my finger on it, And there was nothing, like the Lord just wasn't responding. And I was like, okay. So then we go through it again the next night. And I was like, Lord, like, what's going on? Like, if there's something that I'm missing, like, please tell me. And then it was just like this bucket of water hit me and it was like, you're pregnant. And I was like, no. I was like, maybe. And I was like, well, that would be really great. I would love to be, because leading up to that, I had actually had a strong gut feeling that I was going to get pregnant in February, which sounds weird, but that was just like something about February. It felt right to me in my brain, but whatever. And so I was like, Lord, like, could it be? Am I? And it just really felt so strongly true. But with that, and this is where it may sound a little bizarre to some people, I felt very strongly that I was not supposed to take a pregnancy test and that I was not supposed to look in like my little app to see where I was at in my cycle. Like I really felt like the Lord was calling me to just walk in faith and to believe, like, Kayla, I told you that this is true. So I want you to believe that it's true and don't look for I guess you would call it like a man-made confirmation. You have confirmation for me. It's true. Like you need to believe that. And I was like, okay. So I was trying to do that. I was like, all right, I'm just going to walk in faith and I'm going to say, Lord, like, thank you so much for this baby that I truly believe is growing in my belly. And, I just kind of kept clinging on to that. A few more days went by. I was still having the insomnia. I was still praying through it and still being like, Lord, I thank you for this baby that I truly believe is growing in my belly. And then there was one morning I was like, Lord, I really believe that you've told me this. I have faith that you've told me this, but can you just give me something? Can you give me like a little sign, a little confirmation, something to let me know that that I'm not crazy, that I've heard you correctly. And I went after I got done praying and laid back down in bed. And I opened up my phone and I went to like pull up the little Bible app. I was going to read the verse of the day before I, checked emails and stuff. And the verse of the day that day was Psalm 139, 13 through 14. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. And I was like, that's it.
Hallelujah.
But even that, like how kind the Lord is, he didn't have to give me that at all. He could have just been like, no, Kayla, you have to keep standing in faith. But I was like, man, like, thank you, God. Like, it's done. Let's go. And that was the best confirmation. I could have received. And so that was great.
Did your husband accept that as confirmation?
I had not told him yet.
Okay. So when did you tell him? How did you tell him?
So for a while, I was like, it felt like my sacred little secret. I don't know. I was really keeping it close to the chest. It was just me and God for a few days. And then it gets to be Sunday, and we were getting ready to head to a friend's house. And he brought up our anniversary, and we usually take a trip for our anniversary. And he was like, "Oh, do you want to do like a big trip this year? Do you want to do something smaller, a little bit more local?" And without even thinking about it, I said, "Well, I guess it depends on how far along I am at that point." And he was like, "I beg your pardon." He was like, "Are you pregnant?" And I was like, "Well, let me tell you my story."
So then you told him everything you just told us.
I told him everything at that point, and he was like, "Well, are you late?" And I was like, "I don't know. I've not checked the app. I don't know where I am in my cycle. I don't know anything other than I really believe that the Lord has told me this." And I was like, "I feel it in my bones." And if you know me, and my husband knows me, if I tell you I feel it in my bones, like it's done, you're not gonna convince me otherwise. But after that, I did pray, and I was like, "Lord, if it'd be okay, I think it'd be cool to see where I am and like check my little app. If you don't want me to, I won't. I'll keep waiting." But I really felt like it was okay just to look at that point. Was still not at a place to take a test. And I think at that point, honestly, I didn't even need to take a test because I knew even if the test said negative, I would be like, "It's wrong."
Yeah.
I know it's wrong. But I looked at that point, I was 3 days late, and I was like, "Bet." Didn't matter where I was. Like I knew this, but cool. And I just kept on, carrying on throughout the week. And every day I was praying like, "Lord, I thank you for this baby that I truly believe is growing in my belly. And I'm just going to continue to stand in faith." Fast forward to the end of the week. That week was Thursday. And I felt rough that day. And I thought at first it was just standard, like, "Oh, this is just pregnancy kicking in."
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, I realized that it was not pregnancy kicking in. I was very confident that I had the flu.
Mm.
And I was like, "Okay." And I had scheduled a doctor's appointment. And I was like, "Well, like, this is kind of going to be the moment." Cause they're going to ask you, like, "Where are you at in your cycle?" And da, 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 da. And so I prayed then. I was like, "Lord, like, how I respond to having the flu is going to vary very much, whether or not I'm pregnant. I really believe I am. But like, if it's okay, I'd like to go ahead and take a test so that I can tell my doctor I am and this and that." And we had a conversation about it. And I felt really comfortable with, like, I had permission to move forward and take a test. And so my plan was to take the test. I was going to go put it upside down on my bathroom counter, leave, pray, come back in 5 minutes. Cause it says 5 minutes. And I did not have to do that because the moment that that test was activated, that pink line showed up strong and immediately. And which I was very grateful for. I felt like even that was like just the Lord being kind to me. He's like, "Hey, like, you've waited this last almost 2 weeks. I'm not going to make you wait another 5 minutes." Like, which at that point, like, me and Jason were both like, "Yeah, we knew that." But it was, I guess, nice to have that additional backup. And so, yeah, I proceeded with having the flu. I got over it pretty well. What was really fun was that as the flu was kicking in, so was morning sickness. So that was
Double dose.
Double dose, but that's okay. Morning sickness just got worse after that. So that was just getting started, but it's okay. Which is funny because, so I told you I work with teenagers in gangs. So I spend a lot of time around individuals who smell very strongly of marijuana. And when you're pregnant and very, very sick, sometimes those smells don't go great. And so my very first day back at work from having the flu, I was meeting with one of the guys, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, Kayla, just keep it together, keep it together." And I left from his house. I drove far enough down that they wouldn't be able to see me. And I had to pull over, and I was just puking my guts out on the side of the road. And I was like, "This is going to be interesting to navigate." And it was, but that's okay. I actually had to call work because I ended up throwing up all over myself. And I was like, "You guys, I got to go home and take a shower." They thought it was because of the flu. It wasn't, but it's fine. But we just kept navigating it for the remainder of that week, and it was fine. And then Saturday, I had a work meeting for breakfast, and I was trying to not throw up in front of these community partners that we were meeting with at the restaurant. I was doing really well with it. And then right before we were getting ready to leave, I felt what felt like a gush. And I was like, not supposed to feel that. And then I was like, oh, I'm just in my head. Like there was nothing there. Like it's no, nothing happened. It's fine. And I proceed to drive home. I'm on the phone with my mom. I don't say anything to her about it because I'm really like, nope, there was nothing there. Like everything's fine. And then when I get home, I go to the bathroom and I see that I'm bleeding. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how am I bleeding? Like this, this is the baby, like the Lord, he's in this, like, I'm not supposed to be bleeding. And, I kind of panicked for a second and was at that point 7 weeks along. So I didn't have any type of prenatal care established anywhere.
Yeah.
And so my mom was like, well, why don't you just go to the hospital? And I was like, well, what's even the point? And she said, well, that way you'll just know what's going on. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. And so I went and got Jason, and we drive to the Kernersville Hospital because I felt like it'd be quicker there. And just the whole way there, like, I'm just praying, like, Lord, like, I believe that you've given me this child. Like, I believe that they're going to be okay. Like, please let them be okay. Like, just begging the Holy Spirit to intercede on our behalf, and for this baby to be okay. And so we get to the hospital, and
whether you are pregnant with your first baby or wanting to have a different birth experience for a subsequent delivery, this is the fully comprehensive Christian childbirth course for you, the Surrendered Birth Course. With over 10 years of experience as a childbirth educator, a birth doula, and having had 5 kids myself, almost 6, I have created a course fit for every mama out there who wishes to be fully informed on all things pregnancy, labor, birth, postpartum, and breastfeeding, while remembering to keep Jesus at the center of it all. Our God created a beautiful design for birth, something to look forward to, and not something to be feared. Not only will this course get you prepared for your birth, but it will also get you excited for it. It will answer questions you never knew you had and teach you things you didn't realize were so incredibly valuable and central to the entire birthing process. I've had numerous couples on their 2nd, 3rd, or even 4th babies who've taken this course and said how incredibly glad they were and that they learned so much more than they ever thought they would. With over 12 hours of video content, 5 modules, numerous lessons, detailed PDF printout notes, and endless resources, we dive deep into pregnancy, labor, the risks and benefits of interventions, inductions, immediate and extended postpartum for both mom and baby, everything you need to know about breastfeeding, and basic newborn care. This course covers everything. Once you've taken the course, I am available to you for any questions you might have during a monthly live Q&A Zoom call exclusive to our online course audience, as well as through email. The course is on demand, so as soon as you purchase it, you'll be able to start right away and re-watch any lessons as many times as you need. Whether you are planning a medicated hospital birth or an unmedicated birth at a birth center or home birth, this course will prepare you in every way that you can be prepared. While I understand the desire to take a specific hospital or home birth course catered to your specific birth plans, birth doesn't always go how we plan. And having the knowledge of how birth can go in other environments outside of our plans is essential. Most importantly, I will help you to surrender these plans to God. And in return, the Holy Spirit will provide you with the peace that only He can give. For more information on the course, to read testimonials of others who have taken it, or to sign up for the course, Just click the link in the show notes. And lastly, remember, just like we say here every week on the podcast, learn all that you can, make the best plans, and then leave it in God's hands.
And so we get to the hospital and I'm waiting. And honestly, it's actually a very, very quick wait, which is shocking for a hospital because everybody else is there with the flu and whatnot. And I just feel the most incredible sense of peace, truly only peace that can be given by the Holy Spirit. I even check in with myself. I'm like, how am I so calm? I'm like, oh, that's the Lord, because I felt such an incredible peace. And so the ultrasound tech takes me back and she tells me, which I was very grateful. She told me at the beginning, she said, just so you know, I cannot tell you anything. I can't show you the screen. I can't tell you anything one way or the other. And I was like, okay. And so she does it. I even kind of was like, you sure you can't tell me nothing? And she was like, I really can't. So she's wheeling me back out and I'm actually smiling while she's wheeling me back out. That's just how peaceful, how good I feel. And I see Jason, God bless him. And he looks like a ball of nerves. And then beside him is my mom and sister, because in natural fashion, my family, they showed up and you got to love them. And he was like, what did they say? I said, oh, she didn't say anything. But I'm just sitting there smiling. I'm like, I feel good. I believe it's going to be good. And there's a doctor. He takes us over to a little makeshift room. And he basically says, baby is in your uterus. They have a heartbeat, which is in itself a huge blessing because you can't always detect that at 7 weeks. Their fetal pole looks good. All of that looks good. But you do have a large subchorionic hemorrhage. And he said, so you just need to know that puts you at a high risk of having a miscarriage. And just without even thinking, I just said, I reject that in the name of Jesus. And he just kind of stared at me and he said, well, that's fine, but I got to tell you that. And I said, that's fine that you tell me that, but just so you know, I reject it. And he was like, okay. But he said, you need to follow up with your OB immediately on Monday. And I said, well, I don't have an OB yet. I'm 7 weeks along. He's like, you should, set that up. And I was like, okay, great. And he said, in the meantime, go on strict pelvic rest, and just don't do any exercising and, just hope for the best. And I was like, that's all you got? Hope for the best. And so we left. And I did a little bit of research on the drive home, not doom scrolling research, what's going to happen, but I was looking for just solid recommendations. And I found a midwife that essentially said, if you want to be as safe as possible, you can do kind of some strict bed rest for, I can't remember if I did it for 1 or 2 weeks. And that will really just help your body heal up that hemorrhage. And Lord willing, everything will be good. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do strict bed rest, and I really believed that the Lord was going to heal me and that he was going to protect my baby. But I also wanted to be a good steward. I wasn't going to leave and be like, I'm going to go for a run.
Right.
It's finding a balance in those two things. And so I got home from the hospital. I took a shower and I was like, okay, bed rest starts now. And in a lot of ways, it kind of worked out that I started bed rest because that was also when morning sickness kicked in hard. And they call it morning sickness. Let's be so clear. I don't know who invented that name, but they're a liar because it's morning, afternoon, night sickness, 24/7 sickness. It kicked in really hard for me. And so honestly, all I had capacity for at that time anyway was bed rest because I was either throwing up or sleeping round the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband, bless his heart, would come home from work on his lunch break and try to feed me something, put fresh trash cans next to the bed for me, make sure I had plenty of water and stuff sitting around. And, we were doing our best with that, but that's okay. But him working in integrative health, he was just I have a really hard time believing that there's nothing that we can do to help promote healing in your body. And so he started to do some research on his side and he found some really good case studies on doing vaginal suppositories of alpha lipoic acid and progesterone. And so he actually went to another one of the providers there who was an OB fellow for several years and was like, hey, what do you think about this? And they reviewed it also. And they were like, yeah, this looks great. I think this would be a great idea for Kayla. It's definitely not going to hurt anything. If anything, it's just going to help support a healthy pregnancy. And so he actually very quickly took me on as a patient so that he could start prescribing that to me, which was really great and a huge blessing.
Did it help?
I mean, it healed. So.
Oh, you're talking about the hemorrhage healed.
Yes.
Okay. I thought you were talking about your morning sickness.
No, nothing
helping with morning sickness.
Nothing. You were like, have I figured this out?
Well, you were saying it like, as an integrative health specialist, I feel like, we can support your body and heal.
They encouraged me to take vitamin B to help with morning sickness.
Right.
B6. I don't think that helped.
Yeah.
It probably didn't hurt anything to have extra vitamin B, but it did not make me stop throwing up. But that's fine.
Yeah. I always think that if and by the time I have another baby, they would have come far in their research with the morning sickness and figured out some sort of magical cure. But other than, chew ginger and eat protein and those things. But
you would think that your body would be used to the HCG by now.
I don't know. I don't think that's what it is though. I think maybe that's what it is for women who get normal morning sickness. Where they just feel a little woozy or a little nauseous right first thing in the morning, have some crackers and then they're fine. That's what my mom always says. She was like, I don't understand why you feel that way. She's like, I would just wake up, eat a few saltines and then I was good to go for the day. And I'm like, wow, that would be amazing.
I love that for her.
I know, me too. I'm like, that sounds so great.
And it's funny because people actually told me oh, try to eat really bland foods. And actually I threw up the bland foods faster.
Oh, really?
It was when I ate something maybe spicy or I don't know, out of the norm, which was not out of the norm for me, but out of the norm for what people would recommend. Yeah. That's when I would maybe I wouldn't throw it up or I wouldn't throw up as much. And I think maybe my body was like, it's going to hurt to throw this up. Let's really try to digest it.
Let's keep this down.
Let's work really hard to keep this down. I don't know. But yes, so I did find an OB that I went to on Monday, and I chose one that was at Baptist that had the midwives and stuff on staff. I was leaning towards doing a birthing center, but I had not made any final decisions on anything. And at that point, the birthing center doesn't take you until you're 12 weeks anyway. So it was really a moot point. So I got that set up. I went there, just saw whoever could see me on Monday. And it was honestly the biggest waste of time because they were basically like, yep, you have a large subchorionic hemorrhage. Best of luck. And I was like, great, thank you. And then I asked them, I said, well, can we check my progesterone levels? Make sure that they're high. And if they're not, I can take something to help get them higher. And she said, no, we don't do that. Only infertility clinics check for stuff like that.
That's not true.
I know it's not true. You're a liar, but okay. And yeah, I did not stay at that office.
Not.
Yeah. But I was like, cool, awesome. And after that was when, Jason had found this other study with the alpha lipoic acid and progesterone. So I was like, haha, cool. So we did that and we just kind of kept trucking along and I just kept praying. And honestly, even with throwing up, I never minded throwing up. The only thing that stressed me out with throwing up is that I was like, this is not me taking it easy. This is my whole body is lurching constantly. And so I was just constantly praying Lord, I can take this. I'm fine with puking my guts out. That does not bother me. Just please keep my baby safe. As long as my baby is safe, I do not care. I will throw up all day. I don't care.
Wow. You're a better woman than me. I would have never prayed that prayer.
You would have though.
Well, I don't know. I pray the opposite prayer every pregnancy. Lord, take this from me. Take this thorn out of my side. Do not make me throw up all day, every day.
No, it was really, I was like, I'm good. If I'll throw up, I don't care. As long as my baby's safe, it's fine.
Hero. That's you.
Thanks, but I'm really not. It was just honestly, I was just so focused on my baby being okay. And by the grace of God, she was. Kept trucking along. I kept getting farther along and kept throwing up too, which, like I said, that was fine. I was like, I'll take this all day. I was of the naive group that thought once I hit my second trimester, that would mean I wasn't sick anymore.
Oh, no.
I found out I was not a part of that group of people.
So did you end up seeking out permanent care somewhere else? Like, where did you land for your care?
Yeah. So after I quit the atrium office I was at, I actually ended up going over to Lyndhurst just because I had heard good things about them. And I knew that I still wanted to eventually, more than likely, go to the birth center. But, I kind of wanted to have something that was closer to the house, honestly, while we were kind of in this weird period with the hemorrhage and whatnot, which I was really grateful that I did do that because I had quickly stopped bleeding. And then it was maybe a few weeks later, I started bleeding again one night. It was very short lived. It was just for like a few hours and then it stopped. But being so close to Lyndhurst, they were able to like let me come in the next morning and they did an ultrasound and like she was great. She was still in there trucking along. And actually, what it was that my hemorrhage was shrinking. And so they said that bleeding was likely just my body kind of expelling that and that my hemorrhage was shrinking and everything was basically going in the direction it needed to be going. So I was like, cool, praise God. Like, let's just keep on keeping on. And honestly, throughout my pregnancy, like the Lord was so, so faithful to me. He was so kind to me. I never felt more connected to the Holy Spirit than I did throughout my pregnancy. And I think it was just where I was desperately relying on his intercession. And most of the time I would feel really good and really confident. And then like fear would creep in. I was like, oh, but like, what if my hemorrhage gets worse? Or like, what if this happens? Or what if that happens? And like, I could just so strongly feel the Holy Spirit there with me. And like, even giving me dreams about her throughout my pregnancy, like just these incredible gifts that he didn't have to do, but just to give me like peace. And then even later on, if I would feel anxious or worried again, I'd be like, no, I remember this dream that he gave me. And, she's going to look like this and it's going to be like this and it's going to be great. Like, I know it is. Like he told me it's going to be. I mean, it was really just how kind he was to me. It really was incredible. And when we began the process of looking for a doula, because I knew I wanted a doula, it was actually a little bit harder than I thought it would be. But there were a lot of doulas that we saw that the language that they used, like talking about like birthing persons and chest feeding and all these things. And I was like, that's not what I'm looking for in a doula. Or even some that were borderline like witchy in the things that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, that's not for us either. And so it was Jason actually who found your website. And like the first thing on your website, you're talking about like Jesus and, supporting women through their birth with Jesus. And we were like, this sounds like Our Lady. And so when we found you, we were super grateful because we were like, this is exactly what we were looking for, exactly what we were hoping for. And so that was a great part of it. But yeah, finding the right doula for us was actually a little bit harder than we had expected it to be.
Well, not every doula is a Christian doula, but I'm so glad the Lord brought you to me. And I will have to say, I love you and I love Jason. And he was the first ever dad to reach out to me first because he reached out to me on y'all's behalf. And I've never had a dad do that. It's always been the mom. So it was fun. And then I got confused because your name was Kayla. And I was like, wait a second. But like trying to figure out if he was talking about me or if he was talking about you. And then I realized we had the same name and everything clicked. But I appreciated from the get-go his engagement, participation, interest, and like devotion to being a part of the process. And I've loved that about him.
Oh, you'll hear more of that as the story goes on. So we signed up for the Surrendered birth class, which I don't know if you guys know this, those of you who are listening, but they're doing more classes this spring. You should sign up.
Thanks, Kayla.
But it really is. I genuinely say this. It really is a really excellent birth class. It's very comprehensive. It's everything that you want. And what is extremely helpful, and what my husband loved, was that you get this nifty binder that has all these handouts in it. And so in the weeks leading up to me delivering, Jason was in his office studying that binder,
I love it.
like on a nightly basis, reviewing things. So if no one else uses those binders, know that Jason did, and he loved it.
Oh, people do. I see them when I go to like prenatals with people who've taken my course. Some people bring them to the birth
Jason did.
as if I'm not going to be there. But
Jason brought it to the birth.
yeah, some people bring it to the birth. Some people want to have repeat clients. They bring the binder back out. We want to like go over it again together, and it's great. So yes, if you do sign up for the in-person class, you get a binder that has everything in it that you'll need.
See, when we started the classes, I think I was 30 weeks pregnant.
I don't remember, but sure, that sounds right.
That's right. Yeah. So I was 30 weeks pregnant, which was an interesting time because there for a few weeks at the very end of my second trimester, the very, very beginning of my third trimester, I went a few weeks and I didn't throw up any. And I was like, yes, no more throwing up. And then once I hit 30 weeks, it's like, just kidding. You just got a few weeks off. But this time it was interesting because it was like classic morning sickness where you just throw up in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then at night it was like crazy acid reflux that felt like it was going to burn through your esophagus.
Yeah.
But even that, I was like, Lord, like, as long as she's safe, cool. I'm fine. Yeah. Like, we're rolling. And which I will confess, because in full transparency, I need to confess this. When it was quite a bit further along at this point, there was a few nights in a row I just was not sleeping because I was quite large and a bit uncomfortable. I was on the phone with my mom that morning and I was ill on the phone, and she was just like, "Kay, I'll talk to you later." And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm so ill. And I knew it's because I was tired. And then it just struck me. And I was so ashamed of myself because I was like, Lord, please forgive me, because what a privilege it is to be tired because of a healthy pregnancy. And I just felt so ashamed that I had lost sight of that. And
this is why you're a better woman than me, Kayla. Right there. But I love that. No, I love you sharing that though, because that helps me check myself too. Even here in postpartum, for me, that helps me check myself when I'm like taking an hour and a half to get my baby to go down at night because he just will not settle. And I can't make my sourdough because he has to be latched to me. Anyways, so that's why I love doing this podcast. I love talking to moms. I love hearing their stories. And I love, especially, obviously, their Christian, like Jesus-centered stories, but helping like me realign my faith, my trust, my contentment, and the blessings that we have been given.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's where I was at. I kind of had that realignment of myself, and I was just like, Lord, it'd be nice to get some sleep, I guess, but it's way, way, way better that I'm sleepy because I have a healthy pregnancy. So like, thank you, God. And kind of had that reset for myself. So that was really very needed and very good. And I kind of just kept trucking along from there. You know, it's so interesting to me because once I hit 36 weeks, I feel like we should ban the phrase, "Oh, are you like no baby yet? Are you still pregnant?" Because once I hit 36 weeks, that's what happens. People, and like when people would see me, "Oh, no baby yet?" And like you see that I'm physically very huge.
Right.
Well, clearly I'm still pregnant. And I actually, at some point, and this was when I was like 40 weeks, I was maybe a little bit more sarcastic. Somebody asked me, they were like, "No baby yet?" I said, "Oh yeah, I had her. She's in the car." And they just looked at me and I was like, right.
Yeah, things you can only say when you're 40 weeks pregnant. It's great.
Right. But, you know, everything at that point, I mean, I was so grateful because it was so chill, you know, all of my appointments were so smooth.
And you had transferred to the birth center by that point.
I had transferred to the birth center. I transferred to the birth center right after my anatomy scan.
Right. Like a little over halfway.
Yeah. So as of my anatomy scan, my hemorrhage was completely healed. At 16 weeks, it was still there, but the ultrasound tech told me it was so small that if she had not been looking for it, she would not have seen it.
There you go.
So that was just a huge blessing. I was so grateful. So by my anatomy scan, it was gone, and my anatomy scan went great. Thank God. It's so funny because I know so many people that talk about how their anatomy scan is like 45 minutes or an hour. I'm pretty sure mine lasted like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
it should be about that length.
yeah. So ours was very quick. And I don't know if she was just in a great position, but
probably. And you probably had a skilled technician taking out pictures.
Yeah.
Okay. So take us to 40 weeks.
But so, yeah, I was at the birth center. Everything was going great. I was super healthy and stuff. And I mean, pretty early, she was head down. Or was she? No, she was allegedly.
She was allegedly head down.
Allegedly head down. And so I went in for my 40-week appointment. And they said that she was head down. And so much so, actually, that they were like, oh, yeah, we can feel her shoulder against your pelvis. So they were like, she's in a great position. She's doing great. You know, everything seemed to be flawless. And I was like, cool. And they were like, you're a first time mom. You're probably going to go late. And I was like, no, that's completely fine. I had mentally prepared to go late. I had been telling myself and even telling people, I was like, I don't think she's going to be born until October. And for the record, she was due September 20th.
Yeah.
But so when everybody's like, oh, when do you think? Do you think that? I was like, nope, I don't think she's coming until October. I was just really trying to play the long game, which it can mess with you playing the long game when people are constantly like, no baby yet, no baby yet. But that's a different conversation. But so I was playing the long game, and honestly, I feel like I felt great. I guess in truth I didn't, if I really, really am honest about it, but I didn't care that I didn't, right? Like that just goes back to I was genuinely just so happy to be pregnant. I loved feeling her inside of me. She was a very active baby, so she was kicking me all the time. And just moving around. So I loved feeling her. And even that was like where the Lord would be kind to me, because I'd wake up in the middle of the night to like roll over and be like, hey, like, is she okay? Like talking to God, and like she'd give me a good kick. And I was like, cool, thanks. And I'd go back to sleep. That was great. Like things were uncomfortable and stuff, I guess. But overall, I really did love being pregnant. So I was not trying to like rush it to end from that sense.
Yeah.
But everything was great at my 40-week appointment. And then come Tuesday, so the week prior leading up to that, I had been having a lot of Braxton Hicks contractions. And to the point to where there were times I was questioning, is this Braxton Hicks or is this the real thing? Because, you don't know. People tell you like, oh, you're going to know. But you're sitting there like, am I? I don't. Will I know? And so I'd been having a lot of like Braxton Hicks contractions, and there were several nights that they got super consistent and then they'd stop. And I was like, okay, whatever. So on Tuesday, so I guess I would have been 40 weeks and 2 days, there was a shift in the Braxton Hicks contractions. They felt very different. They were stronger. They felt more like a period cramp, honestly. And I had actually texted you and I was like, is this normal to feel like I'm starting my period? And you were like, what do you mean? Like, are you bleeding? I was like, no, I'm not bleeding, but like the cramps are that way. And you were like, yeah, that sounds like that was a contraction. I was like, okay, cool. And the funny thing about that is that I had just gotten to my parents' house to babysit my niece, who is a very high energy. At that point, she was just shy of being 4. And I was like, awesome. We're just going to vibe through this, babysitting her like while having contractions and stuff. It'll be great. And it was fine. They never got consistent. And you had encouraged me to maybe do the mile circuit that night, which I would also like to state for the record. When you learn about the mile circuit, you're like, oh, that seems so chill. When you do the mile circuit and you're 40 weeks and 2 days pregnant and you're doing like side lunges for 30 minutes, it hurts.
It's definitely a lot more work when you're 40 weeks pregnant.
The Lord got me through the last like 15 minutes of those side lunges. but whatever. It was fine. It was fine.
Well, and I told you to do the mouth circuit as any doula or midwife would have told you, because if you're having contractions like that, but they aren't going anywhere, like they're not getting closer together and stronger and more consistent and all that kind of stuff, then that shouts positioning issue. That shouts that she's not in the best position to put enough pressure on your cervix to make this like pick up and continue.
Yeah. And the rest of the week kind of went that way, where it would like anytime it started to feel consistent, it would never be consistent for more than an hour. There was actually one night I was like, if this goes on for a little bit longer, I'm going to wake up Jason. And then it stopped. And I was like, oh, just kidding. Guess I'm going to go back to sleep.
So more of like a prodromal labor situation.
Definitely prodromal labor situation. That started to get frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what's happening here? And even then, I was just trying to pray through it because I was like, Lord, like, I don't mind going longer. Like, that's fine. But like this, like, start and stop that, it kind of messes with your mind a little bit. And I think also at that point, I was closing in on 41 weeks and I didn't mind going another week. But then there is that clock that's kind of ticking in your mind where I knew if I hit 42 weeks, I'm going to be fired from the birthing center.
Right.
And that's going to put me in a really kind of crappy situation. And so, you try not to think about that timeline, but it is kind of there in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And so it was the day of my 41-week appointment. My mom was taking me, and you and I had been texting that morning. You were sending me Bible verses because I was telling you I was just kind of discouraged by all the prodromal labor. And when you have a 41-week appointment at the birthing center, and is maybe also the same at OB's office, I don't know, they do a non-stress test where, you sit there and they listen to the baby's heartbeat for 20 minutes just to make sure that the baby sounds really healthy and that you're at a good place to go to 42 weeks. And then after that, they check your fluid levels to make sure that you're not leaking amniotic fluid, which I was very confident that I was not. So right after my mom and I get to the birthing center, they actually call me and they said, hey, we have a lot of moms in labor. Can we actually like cancel your appointment and reschedule it for another day? And I was like, no, respectfully, no, like this is not close to us. It's a far drive and
we're here.
The whole reason I'm here is to do, I was like, I'm here. I'm in the parking lot, like walking in, and they're like, oh, are you here? And I was like, my appointment's in 5 minutes. Of course I'm here. And they were like, okay, well, we can do your non-stress test. You just may not be able to see a doula today because so many people are in labor. A midwife. And I was like, well, that's fine. Like, I don't feel like I need to see anybody. Like, I don't have any issues or anything. As long as the stress test gives me the clear to keep going, like I'm good to keep going. And so I go in there, they hook me up for the NPT, and by the grace of God, she passes with flying colors. And the midwife actually comes in. She's like, oh, we got done sooner than I thought. And, we're just kind of sitting there waiting for the NPT to finish up. And she was going to do the ultrasound on this little iPad. And at first she's like, oh, wow, like it looks like she's so low, like I can't even see her face. And I even texted you that and you're like, oh, that's great. But then like, she's kind of like, I can't really get a good picture. Can we go to the actual ultrasound? And at this point, my mom, like her spidey senses were tingling. She was like, is something wrong? And she's like, no, like nothing's wrong. I really just can't get a good picture. And so I need to use like the actual machine. And she was like, okay. And once again, like this was the Lord, because I was not feeling any stress or anxiety at this point. My mom tells me after the fact that like her like anxiety was through the roof because she was like, something's not right. Thank God I was not. Like I felt super calm, super peaceful. And then we go into the room and she's doing the ultrasound. And she's like, yeah, that's what I was worried about. That's a butt. And I was like, I beg your pardon. And she was like, she's not head down. Like, she's supposed to be. That's her butt. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? What do we do? And she was like, that means you're going to have a C-section. And I was like, I beg your pardon. And I was so thrown because I was like, she's been head down for, at that point, had been head down for at least 10 weeks from what I can recall, if not longer. And I was like, how did this happen? And then there was no like conversation of like, we can try this or we can try this. It was like, nope, it went very quickly. It was like, no, you're going to have a C-section. I'm calling the people at Atrium. They'll probably want you to come in first thing in the morning. There's a possibility they could want you to come in tonight. And I was like, what? And I got upset for a lot of reasons. I mean, number one, that felt like just such a whirlwind. And there was no like, what do you want to do? Or like, do you have any thoughts on this? It was just like, this is what's going to happen now. And which I understand. I mean, I guess at the birth center, there's at that point, like from their legality, their hands kind of were tied, I guess. I don't know how all that works, but
they're not allowed to deliver a breech at the birth center, essentially.
Yeah. And I was pretty heartbroken because I had really had my heart set on just a very natural, very holistic, very peaceful delivery. And I was like, this is going to be the opposite of that. And, everybody around me was like, well, she's healthy. That's the most important thing. She's healthy. That's the most important thing. And I was like, yes, that is the most important thing. And thank God that she's healthy. But like, I just needed a moment to be allowed to be upset.
Yeah.
And so I was like texting you while this is happening. I was heartbroken. I guess I was confused because I was like, Lord, like, we've really been in this whole thing together. I really prayed a lot before even choosing the birthing center because I was like, Lord, like, is this where you want me to deliver? Like, I want to be in alignment with you and with your will. Like, I very much brought him into that conversation. So I was like, what was the point of all of this?
Right.
And you had actually asked me if I had been seeing a chiropractor. And I said, yeah, I go to Village Family in Kernersville, but they're closed right now. And you were like, I know one of the owners, like, I'll text her. And so she was willing to like meet me there and see me then. So I drove there and I walk in and God bless Dr. Kim because she just sees me. She's like, hey. And I'm like, hey. And she's like, do you want a hug? And I just start sobbing into her. And it was very gracious for her. She just let me be upset for a minute. And I just needed that. I needed to be allowed to be upset. And I was like, I know the most important thing is that she's healthy. And I'm so, so incredibly grateful that she is healthy. I'm just also like really confused and I'm feeling a lot of stress about like this whirlwind of a turn of events. And she was like, it's okay to feel that way. I was like, thank you. And so that night, I spent that whole night like inverted because I was like,
right. Because you're trying to flip her at that point.
I was like, I'm going to see if I can get this girl to flip back. Because if she has flipped in the past week, in my mind, I'm like, well, then she could flip back.
Right.
Especially since they were so confident at 40 weeks that she was head down, like to the point where they're like, look, you can feel her shoulder right here. And they were even like, look, this is how you can tell that it's her head because like when you move it wobbles. And so I'm like, she had to have been head down. Like maybe, I don't know. But so I had spent that whole night like doing spinning babies, trying to get her to flip. And Atrium did call and they basically were like, come in, be here at, I feel like it was like 6 a.m. It was super early.
Yeah, it was early.
Their concern was that at the ultrasound that was done at the birth center, she was sitting crisscross applesauce and it looked like she was sitting on her cord. And they were like, if she stays sitting on her cord, if you do go into labor, that could be very dangerous. If your water breaks and if her cord comes out first. And I was like, oh. So my plan going into that appointment that morning was I was not going to just go straight into the C-section. My plan was to ask them, number one, I had spent all the night before inverted. So let's see if like, Lord willing, she flipped. And even if she didn't flip, is she in a safe enough position that we don't need to rush a C-section? I can spend the next week trying to get her to flip. And I was just praying. Number one, I was praying that she would flip. And number two, I was like, I want, a clear answer because my priority is her being safe. And so we get there and I tell them like, hey, let's do an ultrasound first. And they were willing to do that.
Was I in there when they did the ultrasound?
You were.
Or was that?
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't let me back at first, but then
they wouldn't let you
guys
back at first. And I was like, I'm going to fight you.
They
Like,
eventually did let me back.
Yeah, because I got so mad at them. They eventually did let you back, and they did an ultrasound, and they said, no, her cord is coiled up perfectly on top of her belly. And at that point, she was like a taco, still butt down, but like a taco, not crisscross applesauce.
Yeah, like more like a Frank breech. But she was at a bit of an angle.
Yeah.
Like her butt wasn't like centered over your cervix. It was like she was like that taco, but she was sort of like slightly diagonal, like slightly off center.
Yeah, she was off center. And I said, I would like to not do the C-section unless it's absolutely medically necessary to do it today. And she told me, I was very grateful for this provider because I actually expected a little bit more hesitancy. And she said, I absolutely think it's safe for you to wait. I don't think that you need to do a C-section today. I think that, she is super healthy. You have a really good amount of amniotic fluid. I wasn't having any like health issues myself as far as blood pressure or anything like that. They did another NST on her that she did fabulously at. And so they were like, no, I think that you're fine. And I was like, awesome. So I left that appointment. I felt like light as a feather. I was so relieved. And I think it's just, I was like, cool, because I'm out of this crazy whirlwind. So I spent all like Saturday evening inverted doing spinning babies. And then I had actually read that doing handstands in a pool will help a baby flip head down. So Sunday, which, at this point, it's the end of September. At that point, it was September 28th. So all of like the pools are closed, but the Clemens YMCA has an indoor pool. So Sunday, Jason and I went to the Clemens YMCA and we got day passes, and I was doing handstands in the pool, which I imagine looked very interesting because my belly kept making me like almost my body to float up. Mm-hmm. So I had to get Jason to like hold my legs up while I held his ankles. That was the only way I could keep my body to stay underwater.
Are there pictures of this?
No, there are no pictures.
That's too bad.
Which is actually, it's funny because Jason's cousin works at that YMCA, and we told her this several weeks later, and she's like, why didn't you tell me sooner? I would have pulled the video footage, because it probably looked like Jason was trying to drown me. And we got some interesting looks. So I was like, I don't care. I'm trying to get this baby to flip. And so we just kind of kept, we did that for a while. And then I was like, I'm exhausted. Also, I grew up like in the water and around pools and stuff. I can hold my breath for a really long time. I did not account for pregnant me could not hold her breath for a very
right. Your lung capacity is a bit compromised.
Right. So that made it also a little bit harder. And so at the end of it, Jason was like, well, I have a day pass. I might as well work out while I'm here. And I was like, cool. One of my best friends lives like right down the road. I'll call her. I'll just go hang out with her for a little while. And she was like, I'm actually heading to my parents, like meet me there. And, she and I grew up together. So I was like, yeah, of course. So we go there and we're just kind of hanging out. And her dad walks in the living room where we are. And he's like, oh, how are you doing? Like, how's it going with pregnancy? And she's like, oh, well, Dad, like the baby's breech, she may have to have a C-section. And I was like, I know, like, I'm kind of bummed out about that. And he said, yeah, but thank God that that's an option that's there for you if you need it, that you live in a place where you have that resource available to you if you need it. And this was coming from someone who's like the child of refugees and all the things. So it's like, it meant more coming from him. It was really kind of this humbling moment for me. I was like, you're right. I've spent the last couple of days being so like disappointed by the idea of a C-section. I forgot to be thankful that it's there as a resource if I need it. And so I was like, cool. Like that was a good, like humbling moment for me. I was like, okay, I needed that. And so, but, at that point, I also just had a lot more peace about the situation. I still wanted to have a natural delivery. I was still very open to even doing like a breech delivery. But I was like, you know what, if it doesn't in a C-section, like, okay, like I'd had a chance to process it. And so that was that. And then Monday morning, which is really fitting to me, I just now realized that it happened at 4 a.m. Monday morning, which was when all of my
Insomnia started.
insomnia was happening. But at 4 a.m., I got woken up and I was like, oh, that's a contraction. And, you had told me, you were like, when it shifts from prodromal labor to real labor, like you will feel the shift. And I did feel the shift. It was very different. And I was like, okay, I'm in labor. I have no idea if she's flipped. I have no idea what position she's in, but we're just going to pray and we're going to just roll with this. Went to the bathroom, already like bloody show from the beginning, like things were rolling. I think my body was finally like, look, we're doing this. It's time for this to happen, no matter what position she's in. And actually, like, I didn't want to wake up Jason because I was like, I mean, I suppose it still could stop. It stopped so many times. I really didn't think it was going to, but I unintentionally woke up Jason because it had started out as back labor. And so I had to like roll myself onto all fours, and like a moan escaped from my mouth, and like he heard it and he was like, what's happening? So yeah, I was in full blown labor, and I was like, well, what do I do? Because I know I can't go to the birth center. I don't have an OB established. And we knew that there was an OB at Cone that specialized in breech births, but I had not been able to get in touch with her leading up to that point because it was the weekend.
Right.
And so as soon as it was time for like offices to start opening, I guess it was 8 or 9 o'clock, I start calling, and they're like, yeah, she can see you in about 4 weeks. And I was like, that's not going to work. I was like, I'm actually in labor now. And they were like, then you should just go to the hospital. And I was like, I really don't want to. I called several different places. I was trying to find somebody who was like breech friendly that would take me. Nobody had any availability that day. And it was finally there. Like at this point, contractions were like 5 minutes apart.
But you hadn't told your doula that was happening. You specifically, I got a text from your husband.
Are you sure I hadn't told you?
Well, not that it was like that, because he ends up texting me. Now, I could go back and look, but I remember he's the one who texted me, and he was like, she's not being straight with you. She's not telling you what's really going on. Like, she basically, like, you were trying to be like, oh, no, it's good. I'm fine. Like, everything's great. And like, yeah, I'm having contractions, but it's no big deal. And he was like, no, she is like in labor. He was like, they're like every 5 minutes she's moaning through them. She has to change positions. Like, we need to go. And it was just funny.
That sound like me.
Yeah.
So that's probably, yeah.
You were just trying to play it off like things were like, it's no big deal. And
I mean, because it wasn't, but things were progressing.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think my body was like, it's time to go. We're done. And so I was just like, okay, I'm just going to have to go to Cone and just figure it out from there. I did want to go to Cone because I had heard there were several breech friendly providers there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also I still wanted to get information on an ECV. Mm-hmm. And I knew I couldn't wait too long for that to be an option.
Right.
So it was kind of that balance of like, I didn't want to get there unnecessarily soon, but I knew I wanted to talk about an ECV.
Yeah.
So we get there, and I tell them the situation, and I was like, I want to talk to somebody about an ECV, and they were like, okay. So they bring the doctor in there that does that, and he does an ultrasound, and he was like, look, I'm going to be honest with you. And I was like, yeah, be honest with me. And he said, this is how an ECV works. We're going to have to give you this medication that lowers her heart rate and to make her relax. And, you'll be back there and this and that. And if something goes wrong, we will have to put you under and do like, it would have to turn into an emergency C-section. And by something going wrong, like if she didn't respond well to the medication that was supposed to lower her heart rate to relax her, or if I had a placenta abruption or something like that. And on the ultrasound, he's looking and he said, you have an anterior placenta. And that was also on my left side, which was exactly where he would need to kind of push her into to get her to flip. And
right. Wasn't she like snuggling your placenta? Like, I feel like she was like using it like a pillow and like snuggling it like a cuddle object.
She was. Her face was like shoved into it. So he said, you have an anterior placenta. And he said, she doesn't look small. He said, I would guess that she's about 8.5 pounds. And he said, but you do have plenty of amniotic fluid. And I appreciate it. He very much left it up to me. He said, if you want me to do it, I'm more than happy to try to do it. But I will be honest with you, I don't feel great about the chances of it working and being successful. And I mean, I really appreciated, like I said, that he very much made it up to me. But like especially with like the medication to have to lower her heart rate and stuff. And like, she was still not even, which they obviously didn't want me to do a breech birth. And she wasn't even in a great position for a breech birth, just because of how she was positioned then. And so at that point, I just really felt a lot of peace of like, all right, like we can just move forward with the C-section. Like, I hate it that it had to come to that, but I'm like, at that point, yeah. But at that point I was like, it's fine.
As soon as the two of you made that decision, I feel like while you were kind of cool as a cucumber, or at least you appeared that on the outside, Jason's whole demeanor relaxed after you guys made that decision. It was sort of like he was very on edge and very nervous. And I could tell that he was so just like unsettled with the situation of like not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing what to do, not knowing what route to take. And once the decision was made, there was just like this peace that took over that room and that took over, him and both of you. And it was like visible to me.
And I mean, so that we were like, this just feels like the right thing. I definitely did not want to give medication that was going to lower her heart rate. I felt really uncomfortable with that. And I was also uncomfortable with the idea of like, if, especially with me having an anterior placenta, I was like, I don't want to risk having to be put under and having to wait like an extended period of time before I got to hold her, like be with her. I was like, oh no, that I don't want to risk that.
Yeah.
So we decided to move forward with the C-section at that point. And, I told them, I was like, look, I want her in my arms right away. Like, I want her in my arms so fast. And he was like, I will do everything we can to make that happen. I was like, okay. So they wheel me back there. And at this point, I'm by myself. They have Jason somewhere separate. I didn't know it at the time, but Jason was politely threatening people.
Of course he was.
Which is very on brand. He was politely threatening people. Because, Jason worked in the OR for several years. So he was like, listen, I'm watching you guys. And so we go back there. And at this point, they bring him back. And I'm like shaking from a combination of it's freezing back there. I'm sure it's some nerves and then also like the medication. But there was the nurse and anesthetist.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that right? Okay, there we go. The CRNA. God bless that woman. God bless her children, her children's children. Because while everybody else was being they were doing their jobs. They weren't doing anything wrong, but they were very boom, boom, boom. She was very focused on me. She was speaking to me very sweetly. She was maybe a middle-aged woman. She was being very maternal with me. And I just appreciated her so much for that. And she just was really helping me feel very calm. And because there was actually a different nurse that was there that was really trying to push back on some of mine and Jason's decisions. about our baby's care and whatnot. And she was making it abundantly clear how she felt about certain things. And she also told me, she was like, when I bring her over here, you cannot attempt to nurse her. And I was like, well, like, what do you mean? She's like, oh, well, like, yeah, you cannot attempt to nurse her because like it wouldn't be a good angle for her to be able to breathe well. And that could be really bad. And so you can't nurse her until you get into post-op. And I was like, well, how long is that going to be? And she's like, usually like 30 to 45 minutes. And I was like, what the? And I was about to get upset. And the CRNA just looked at me. She said, look, if your baby latches herself, they latch themselves. There's, nothing anybody can do about it. And I was like, thank you. Okay. So, because I was about to be like, I'm getting out of here. These people are. And so Jason comes in there and everything's getting ready to start. And the doctor comes in and he said, like, hey, do you want to listen to some music? And I said, I'm like shaking. And I was like, I made a playlist. And this is actually funny because I don't know if you remember this, when we talked about my playlist that I made anticipating natural labor, it was full of like kick down a door worship music.
Right.
Like that was very much the vibe for my playlist, except for one song. And there was a video that I saw on Instagram a few weeks before this happened. And it was, what's her name? Sadie Robertson Huff, like one of the Duck Dynasty girls. And her third delivery had turned into a C-section. And she was talking about it. And in the video, she was talking about a song by Elevation Worship called All of a Sudden. And she was talking about how she felt really nervous before her C-section. And she played this song to like really just like calm herself down, And so from that video, I looked up the song, I listened to it, and I was like, oh, I like this song. I'm going to put this on my birthing playlist. And it's going to be like my one slow song, but that's fine. So Jason pulls up the playlist and like he hits shuffle, and that's the song that starts playing.
Aww.
And the first words of the song are, I breathe you in, come fill me, Holy Spirit, with your mighty rushing wind. And that was just so, just even that moment, I was like, wow, like the Lord knew weeks ago when he had me see this video. I mean, of course, he knew at the beginning of time, but weeks ago, he was thinking about me and he was even beginning to prepare my heart for this moment. And he planted this little seed so that I would play the song and that I would remember and know that he's with me and know that he has ordained and orchestrated all of this. And so just that moment of like, I don't know, just that awe that brought, I was like, wow, like he really is just working through this whole thing. And also it felt so fitting, like where my entire pregnancy, I had just felt so connected to the Holy Spirit that even then, like there's a song that was inviting the Holy Spirit into like my C-section. That was just great. But yeah, that song was playing and she was born. She was 8 pounds and 5 ounces and just incredible. And they brought her and they laid her on my chest. And right away, she started rooting. And right away, she got latched. And the CRNA helped me out a little bit. And that one nurse came over and like scoffed at us. But I was like, what are you going to do? You can fight me. It's fine. And that was that. And actually, I did pray about that. I was like, Lord, nothing else has gone according to plan. If nursing could go according to plan, that would be really great. If I could just,
If I could have that, please.
If I could have that, that would be great. Please and thank you. And
boy, did you.
Boy, did I. We were awarded the breastfeeding champions of the week by the nurses and stuff on the floor. So it was really great. She did phenomenal from the beginning. She had quite the appetite. But she made it easy because she had a really good latch from the beginning. And I listened to everything that I learned in my surrendered birthing class.
I love you.
About like doing constant skin to skin, constantly having her latched. I did have one nurse try to tell me like, oh, don't let her passy on you because she'll actually burn too many calories that way. You should let her passy on a pacifier. And I was like, no, go away. I just stared at her and she stared back at me. And then she was like, okay, my advice is not welcome here. I was like, it's not. Thank you though. Um, yeah. And so we just kind of kept trucking along that way. I actually did not put clothes on her until it was time for us to drive home from the hospital. And then
Girl, that's what I tell people.
as soon as we got home, they were taken back off.
Yeah.
Of me and her. And yeah, that actually went really great. My milk actually came in record time in 48 hours.
It's because you had her on you and latched all the time.
I had her on me and latched all the time. I really did not expect it to come in that quickly, especially being a first time mom and a C-section mom, because I had heard so I was really preparing myself, like it may take longer and it's fine. By the grace of God, it didn't. It was 48 hours. I was walking around my bedroom and I was like, oh, like what's all this?
What's leaking out of me?
Why am I so sticky? Yeah. And so that was great. I was very grateful for that. And I very much entered what I call postpartum euphoria. In the weeks following my delivery, it was nothing short of euphoric, honestly. And I know some people are going to hear that and be like, I hate you. And that's fine. That's fair. But I felt so connected to the Lord. I felt so connected to my husband. I felt so connected to my baby. I mean, we were just in this incredible euphoric bubble that I never wanted it to end. It was really amazing. And, it obviously helps. I had a really great support system, like my parents and, my sister and cousin and all my friends and stuff. They're incredibly supportive also, and that helps too. But yeah, it was really just the most euphoric time and it was so special.
I could tell that about you. Like when I came to visit you and talking to you through texting stuff, I could tell you were you were on the high. You were on that birth high, but it just kept going and going. And I love it. Jason texted me and he was like, are you sure there's nothing else I can do to help her get any more sleep and things like that? You were just so content to continuously nurse her on demand, and you didn't even care that you weren't sleeping, and it was great. So it's not like it was euphoric because you had this perfect baby who slept 8 hours from the get-go. It was like you were in such bliss just having your baby with you.
Yeah. That's the gist of our story. Everything did not necessarily go according to plan as far as the delivery and stuff like that. But I feel like it did go according to God's plan. And at the end of the day, that's what more could you ask for? That's everything, right? And like I said, just the presence of the Holy Spirit and just the Lord, working through the details. Even just the little details of the song that played and stuff like that. That was so special. And yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of that.
Well, you surrendered. You did what we talked about. You surrendered to the Lord's plan, and that's why you got to have a peaceful birth. And I think genuinely how it was able to play into your euphoric postpartum is because of the perspective you were able to take on the actual birth itself and how it went despite it not going according to plan.
Yeah. And I definitely think that having those 2 days to process very much helped that. And I think that was very much a gift from the Lord of just giving me 2 days to get my mind wrapped around it. And I imagine I would have felt euphoric about it, even if we would have had to move forward with the C-section on Saturday. I feel confident at that, but I'm still grateful that I just was given some time to process.
It was enough time to process, but not so much time that you're anxious for 4 weeks leading up to the birth.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to say as we wrap up? Any advice you have for any parents or anything else you wanted to share?
You mean besides that they should take the surrender to birth class?
I love that you keep dropping that. Hey, and you know what? I'm not ashamed to say it. You should. If you're in the triad and you're local, well, we have the online version, of course, too, if you're not local. But I told my husband this last night, and I said, See, this is going to make it sound prideful. And I say I'm not being prideful, but
It's okay.
you don't know how beneficial the class is and how good it is and how comprehensive it is until you actually take it. Because if you take another class, then you won't know because you didn't take this one, you know?
And if I can actually add to that, there are times that, like, especially Jason in that dang binder, that he referenced back to it even after the fact. So, for example, I actually experienced a yeast infection on my nipple. Brutal.
Oh, girl, sorry.
Oof, it's fine. But that's the thing. I was like, I told Jason, which just sounds so silly. I was like, I don't know what, like, I feel like I've like have an internal tear or something. Like something has happened. Like I feel like I have a sprained nipple. And I was like, something is like wrong. And Jason was like, was reading through the book. And he came in there and he was like, I think that you have a yeast infection based off the information in the book. And I was like, no way. And I did. Now, that was brutal. Nursing through that was a beast. But thankfully, because we knew that that was what it was, we were able to very quickly start. I was putting coconut oil and baking soda, and it healed up really, really quickly because thanks to the binder, we were able to very quickly identify what was wrong. So,
wow. I'm so glad that you were able to use it as a resource even after, which is what it's there for. We do so extensively talk about breastfeeding and obstacles you may encounter along the way and all the things. So, well, good. Well, great. That's wonderful.
So that it would be that advice. And then I would also just remind people that the Lord is able to just so far exceed your expectations that you can trust him. And I will tell you, like, as someone who I really did try to fight it when fear would start to creep in. And I'm telling you, like, how just the Lord has so richly blessed me with truly the most incredible baby. Like
Wait, you never shared her name.
Oh, her name is Eleanor.
I'm like sitting here. We just keep referring to her as she the whole time.
I know.
But you always called her like Ellie Bug. And
I always call her Ellie Bug. But yeah, her name's Eleanor. Which is funny because, like, I didn't even do that on purpose, but my mom always called me K Bug.
Oh.
So she just kind of became Ellie Bug.
That's sweet.
But yeah, I mean, I just feel so incredibly blessed to just have the privilege of being her mom. It's such a huge blessing. And I pray every day that the Lord will help me to be, the mom that he's called me to be, the mom that she needs me to be, and just to honor this gift that he's given me.
I love that, Kayla. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your transparency, your willingness. And honestly, it was just great to catch up again.
It really was.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You can reach me at Surrendered Birth Services on Instagram or email me at contact@surrenderedbirthservices.com. Be sure not to miss an episode by hitting the follow button. Also, we'd love for you to leave a written review of the show so that more people's births and lives can be changed by the love of Jesus and the empowerment of accurate birth education. If you really enjoyed this episode in particular, please take a screenshot of it and post it to your Instagram story, tagging Surrendered Birth Services. If you would like to be a guest on the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, please click the link in the episode show notes to fill out your interest form. Also, if you're interested in taking my childbirth classes, birth consultations, or having me as your birth doula, please click on the link in the show notes to take you to my website for online and in-person options. Just as a reminder, this show is not giving medical advice, so please continue to see your personal care provider as needs arise. We hope you have a great week, and remember, learn all that you can, make the best plans, and then leave it in God's hands.
Also, Kayla said she can see how much she looks like you.
Yes, Jason, I can. Like, seriously, straight from the nose up. I'm like, that is Jason's baby.
Yeah. She's not liking daddy too much these days.
She does love you,
She's going
honey.
through
Does she like your beard? Because my
Yes.
son hates my husband's beard.
Oh no,
Oh, no. She pulls it in, latches on, and right now she loves to use my nose as a passy toy.
Yeah, she likes to put her mouth on his nose now.
Oh,